One of the most unique and impactful game mechanics ever created is currently illegal to use. It's called the Nemesis System and was created for the game Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor in return for its sequel, Shadow of War. I fell in love with this system the first time I played the game. So let's talk about what makes the Nemesis System special, why it's illegal to use, and what games can learn from the Nemesis System without breaking the law. But first, what is the Nemesis System? I'll break down the mechanic with the story of Zune. In these games, you're tasked with taking down an enemy stronghold. But while I was preparing, I was killed by some random mob. And the moment he killed me, the Nemesis System randomly generated a personality, strengths, weaknesses, and traits for that mob.
I said thank you for dying by my hand, Grave Walker.
After an enemy accomplishes something big, like killing me, they move up in the rank of the military. There are captains at the bottom, there are 2 war chiefs, and an overlord. And killing me was enough to make Zune a captain. So of course I wanted some revenge. I tracked him down and got ready to take him out, but it was a bit harder than I expected. He was peppering me with spears and I was about to die until one of his bodyguards snuck up behind me and landed the final blow. Even though Zune did most of the damage to me during the fight, it was his bodyguard that got credit for killing me. When interacting with the Nemesis System, there's a chance for something unique or rare to occur. This could be them escaping death or even sparing you to shame you, but in this case, the bodyguard broke my sword and killed me. Just like before, randomly generated personality, strengths, weaknesses, and traits, Arpratu, the Breaker, was created. So Zune and Arpratu were 2 captains created from killing me, but captains are constantly evolving through randomly generated encounters. This could be hunting for in-game creatures, challenging another captain for their position, or several other things. Unfortunately, Arpratu was immediately assigned some encounters, all of which made him stronger. I went to try to defeat him through a revenge mission that appeared after he killed me, but he snuck up behind me and killed me again, which made him even stronger and got him promoted to War Chief. War Chiefs get 2 captains as bodyguards, making them even more difficult to kill. Since Arpratu was beyond my current capabilities, I went back to fight Zune again, but this time I wouldn't just run in blind like I had been doing in the past. Certain orcs can be found and interrogated to gather intel on certain captains or war chiefs. So I found one and gained some intel on Zune. This time the match would be different. I handled Zune without any problem. He got away, but now I knew the ancient teachings were true. Knowledge is indeed power. I gathered some intel on Arpratu and now I knew I could beat him. Fire turned out to be his weakness. And now I was ready for round 3. I snuck into a stronghold to lure him out and finally he arrived with his 2 bodyguards. Except one of them was Zune, all according to plan. You have the ability to recruit captains if you can weaken them enough, and you can assign these recruited captains to do things like ambush or assassinate other captains. You see, when I fought Zune the last time, I realized the opportunity for poetic justice we had on our hands. So I recruited Zune, trained him to use fire in combat, and had him work his way up to becoming Arpratu's bodyguard, all so we could get to this point. Arpratu stole Zune's credit to get where he was while working as his bodyguard, so now Zune is stealing it back while working as Arpratu's bodyguard. Even with Zune on my side, it wasn't an easy battle. I almost died several times, but in the end, Zune landed the finishing blow on Arpratu. He would go on to become the overlord of the region and my biggest ally. Through Zune's story, you should have an understanding of how the Nemesis System works, but what makes it special? Well, have you ever played a game where your experience felt entirely unique and you hear from other people that you did actually have a unique experience? That can be super gratifying. Unfortunately, we've all had the opposite experience where we think we're a unique snowflake, only to find that half of your friends open the same trick chest, transporting them to Caelid before they were ready too. I'm not saying you need a unique experience to enjoy a game, but it is cool and it's also rare. The Nemesis System, however, all but guarantees it. The combination of mechanics creates meaningful and unique antagonist character arcs, which entirely changes the story for every playthrough. You'll interact with multiple antagonists who have different personalities and traits. They'll grow stronger throughout the game, they'll increase their rank, and have their own arc intertwined with yours. There's always an epic battle to look forward to, and one that gets increasingly challenging as you and your nemesis grow. Even though the main story isn't directly tied to the arc of your nemesis, it'll inevitably have a huge impact on the narrative as you experience it. Think about it in the terms of Avatar: The Last Airbender. This game without the Nemesis System is like Avatar without Zuko. Aang's goal doesn't change if Zuko's not in the show, but changing out Zuko with a different antagonist changes the show entirely. So what the Nemesis System does is it procedurally generates Zukos, making every playthrough feel entirely different. Sounds awesome, right? Hoping to see it in more games? Just imagine some of your favorite action-adventure or RPG games enhanced with this system. Now remember that they can't use the system because it's illegal. Sweet despair. Just kidding, this sucks for everyone. It won't be illegal forever, just a long time. But there may be ways that game developers can get the same outcome without breaking the law. Let me explain. In 2015, Warner Brothers filed a patent titled Nemesis Characters, Nemesis Forts, Social Vendettas, and Followers in Computer Games. In 2021, that patent was granted and will expire in 2035. This patent effectively encapsulates the Nemesis system. A patent is a type of intellectual property, but to be specific, according to the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, or WIPO, or whatever, a patent is an exclusive right granted for an invention, which is a product or a process that provides, in general, a new way of doing something, or offers a new technical solution to a problem. In order for your mechanic to not infringe on the patent, it needs to be both, quote, novel and non-obvious. In more human terms, that means that you can't use the Nemesis system unless you're under the WB umbrella. And you can't use any system that a skilled game developer could deem as a permutation of the original system either. So no slight changes. If you are making a game with a mechanic similar to the Nemesis system in any way, I suggest you talk to a lawyer. And I'm not a lawyer, despite what having these legal textbooks might make you think. But can we be mad at Warner Brothers for this? Business is gonna do business things, right? But that's often at odds with the things that people that are passionate about gaming want, both consumers and creators. And I mean, Warner Brothers hasn't even used the system in any game since Shadow of War in 2017. Bummer. But in reading the definition of patent, it inspired a bit of hope. And that hope came in the form of the Snuggie phenomenon. I'm sure you remember the Snuggie, the blanket with sleeves. Openly, everybody was hating on the Snuggie because it sounded dumb until you met up with your real homies and admitted that you in fact do enjoy being snuggly. The big takeaway for companies was that people want to be comfy, but they also want to use their hands. After the demand for that was exposed, we got a bunch of different solutions for the same problem. This applies to the Nemesis system because the patent protects the process of achieving an outcome, but not the outcome itself. So if we as gamers can isolate the outcomes we love from the Nemesis system, like being cozy and being able to use our hands, we give game devs the ability to achieve those feelings through different means, like this giant comfy sweater. It's not a Snuggie, but it does the same thing. For me, I can only articulate two different outcomes that I love from the Nemesis system, and one area I think the system could actually be improved. I might have missed something, so please let me know if you think of anything else. First, the Nemesis system makes the world feel alive beyond what I experience. There are consequences for my actions and inactions that affect the world, not just my success, but also my failures. This gives the player ownership of the world and makes the world more engaging. The Nemesis system accomplishes this by having time pass in phases, but really any game that has time affect the world can accomplish the same thing. An example of a creative way that this is accomplished outside of the Nemesis system is Dead Rising. In Dead Rising, you're trapped in a mall with a bunch of zombies, and the goal is to get out with as many living people as possible. But events in the game are based on time passing, so as you play, the world is evolving. Your actions and inactions have impacts on the game in the form of certain NPCs dying if you don't save them in time. So similarly to the Nemesis system, this adds weight to your actions and makes the world feel alive. Second, the Nemesis system makes every player's narrative experience feel unique and personalized. This is the crowning jewel of the system, and many other games have attempted to create the same feeling. Typically, a game will give you freedom in how you want to advance the story, like Breath of the Wild or Elden Ring, or they'll give you branching storylines. But the Nemesis system turns standard practice on its head in this regard. It divorces the player's personal narrative experience from the story of the game entirely, and allows you to create your own personal narrative experience by taking advantage of human psychology. You remember the story of Zune, right? He said a total of 6 different lines to me throughout the entire playthrough. But because us humans see things in the form of stories, I could fill in the rest of the pieces in my head. He didn't ever explicitly say he felt slighted by our Pratu, but I could put it together. The Nemesis system just gives a player a means to create a unique story of their own by giving you unique NPCs who can interact and progress. I assume with the inevitable merging of gaming and AI, this kind of thing will only become more ubiquitous. And I'm excited to see the ways that developers can make something like this happen going forward. But it doesn't always have to be that complicated. For example, in the game Fable, amongst the many methods of progression in the game, they have a stupid simple romance mechanic. Be nice and flirt with an NPC and they start to love you. Be mean and they hate you. I accidentally punched an NPC on a visit to a town, and that NPC obviously hated me for it. So every time I went back to the town, I would bring a gift. She liked me and trusted me more and more every visit, until finally...
And so the hero married him. And for one day at least, the troubles of a hard world were put aside.
Now in my mind, this NPC had a personality, she expected me to earn her trust, and she was reluctant to accept my advances because of our past. None of that was true outside of my head, but inside my head is what counts. It did accomplish the same thing as the Nemesis system, just in a much less significant way. Ultimately, it comes down to this. Games try to make their experience unique by augmenting the existing story, but the Nemesis system gives you organic feeling relationships and divorces them from the story, allowing them to be unique, and then having the player create the narrative on their own. The one issue I have with the Nemesis system could be kind of a big one. In most games, there are two goals above all else. Don't die and beat your enemy. Matter of fact, most games can be boiled down to just that in their simplest forms. But for the Nemesis system to work effectively, you have to fail at both. If you never die, it really stunts the growth of the hierarchy and any individual Nemesis. And if you always kill the Nemesis, then they'll never actually grow enough to stand out in your mind. They try to fix this problem by having enemies occasionally escape death or having some recruited orcs betray you, but it doesn't make much of a difference if you just finish them off the next time you see them. As a player, the solution is to make the game more challenging for yourself. In the first game, Shadow of Mordor, there's no difficulty settings, and maybe I'm just amazing at games, but I didn't find it to be that hard, especially after you get the grip on the mechanics. I just think it sucks that the better you get at the game, the worse the mechanic functions. Shadow of War had difficulty settings, and I chose the hardest and died a ton, which was great, but if you weren't fully aware of the Nemesis system beforehand, it would be tough to sell yourself on choosing the difficulty where you die every 10 minutes. From a development perspective, if the system could be implemented in a way that the mechanic doesn't feel more shallow the better you are at the game, that would be a huge boon. The living world and the unique personalized narrative experience are the two most impactful outcomes of the Nemesis system for me. If those two things... If those two things were in a game through other means, I wouldn't need the Nemesis system, but that's just me. If there's something else that you got out of the Nemesis system that I didn't cover, please let us know in the comments. That would help me, but also any devs that may be trying to make something similar that don't want to get sued. The Nemesis system is a pretty niche group of mechanics that can't be applied to every game. But you know what mechanic can be used in the game? Progression systems. And very few progression systems are handled as well as Fable, so click this video here for a breakdown of Fable's progression system and 2 lessons that any game could learn from it. If you enjoy the mechanic breakdown discussions, don't forget to subscribe, and if you know any games or interesting mechanics, please let me know so I can discuss those in my later videos. I'm gonna keep playing games till I find the perfect one. Peace, love.